Have you ever been in the situation where you had to buy back something that already belonged to you? Like you've bought it twice now? We've kind of done that, not the exact same thing, but we've sold things before thinking, we'll never use that. We don't want to do that anymore, whatever. And then 3 years later, decided we did, and then had to go and buy that very thing. And inevitably, it's always more expensive by that point, and you kind of just wish you would have kept your own thing, right? Now we do. It's like now we just hoard everything because we're like, I'm not going to do that again. Where in 3 years, I'm going to want to buy this again. I'm just going to keep it. And so that's an annoying situation. But if you're in a situation where you have to sell something because you need the money and there's no other way for you to get it, but you really want to keep this thing, then what you do is you sell it, but then you try to sell it to someone that you can hopefully buy it back from, knowing that it might cost you more money later. And then also that you might never get the money to buy it back, right? And so that is the situation that a lot of the Israelites would find themselves in at times, where they would have to sell their land because they didn't have enough money to live. And so they would sell their land off to get some money. And then the law provided that no matter who they sold it to, they could buy it back. The person that they sold it to had to give them the land back if they were able to pay for it. So they always had that assurance, but they still had to go and buy something that they had already had in their possession once upon a time. And so that's a very frustrating situation. And what they would often do is try to find someone in the family that could buy their land from them so that they didn't have to actually sell it. So it would stay in the family, but they could get some money at the moment. And so that's where we pick up this story today with Boaz and Naomi and Ruth. Remember that Naomi and her husband, Elimelech, had left a long time ago to go to the land of Moab because there was a famine in the land. But at that time, Elimelech didn't sell his land because there wouldn't have been much purpose. There was a famine, nobody had much food. And so if he sold his land, he still wouldn't really be able to live. And so his thought process was, I'm going to go to Moab and I'm going to live there until the famine passes, and then I'm going to come back to my own land. So he never sold it. But now he's dead, and so are his sons. And so Naomi is back on the land, but she can't support herself forever. Remember, Ruth has been gleaning in Boaz's field for, the last 2 months, but that's not a permanent solution. Basically, kind of begging for scraps, getting other people's leftovers for the rest of your life is not really a way to live. And so she's like, I know that I need to sell this land, but I have family members that can buy it from me. And so remember that last week she got this plan where not only is the support of them not permanent, but it's not a permanent solution for Boaz to keep protecting them and, doing everything that he's doing for them without getting something out of it himself. And Ruth is still young. And so Naomi says, go to Boaz and let him know that you're done mourning your husband and you would like for him to be your permanent protector as your husband, and that you would also like for him to redeem this land for us. And so they go to Boaz and ask this, and Boaz says, I want to do this, but if you're going to go this route, instead of you marrying some foreigner and losing the land, if you want to go the route of doing it by law and getting to have your land redeemed, then there's another relative that's closer to your husband than I am, and he has first dibs on it, basically. He is the one that would be able to get the land, and he's also the one that would marry Ruth. So these were two laws that they had in the books to protect landowners' legacy, the name of the dead person, is that their closest relative would be able to buy their land back, and also would marry any widow that was young enough to still have children but did not have any children, or at least didn't have a son when her husband died. And so he said, I have to ask this other man if he wants to redeem the land and marry Ruth before I can do it. And if he says no, then I would love to do that. And so that's kind of where we are today, trying to figure out, is Boaz going to get to do this, or is this other man going to take take claim on it, on the land and on Ruth? So today in Ruth 4, this is the last chapter of Ruth, and Ruth has gone home to Naomi after the night that she told Boaz all of this, that she wanted this. And Boaz is gone to the city gate to see if he can see this man that's the closer relative to them. And he does see him. And when he sees him, he says, hey, come here. I have some business to do with you. And then he collects 10 elders to come and be their witnesses. And this was normal practice to have this, that you needed this many witnesses in order for an official business transaction to take place. And at the city gate is normally where they would do this, where they would hold business. And so he comes to the city gate with this man and these 10 witnesses, and he explains the situation to the man, but he doesn't tell him about Ruth yet. He just says, hey, remember Naomi and her husband and how they left? Well, she's come back, but she doesn't have a husband and she needs to sell her land. Do you want to redeem it? And the man said, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I'd love to redeem it. Thank you. And he said, okay, well, there's a widow attached to the land. She also brought back with her her son's widow, and if you redeem the land as her kinsman redeemer, then you also have to marry her and carry on her husband's name. And so the way this would work is that the closest relative, normally a brother would be the one, but if there's no brother to marry, then it goes down the line until they find the very closest relative to marry the widow. And the first child that widow has with the new husband gets the old husband's name and the old husband's inheritance. And then every child that they have after that can be their very own. And so he is carrying on the name and preserving the inheritance of the dead husband because the husband was unable to have a son of his own. And so presumably this man already had children, or just didn't want his first child to, get the inheritance of this man, and wanted to make sure, it sounded like a great idea when he was like, do you just want more land than what you already have? And he's like, yeah, that sounds great. And then it's like, okay, and then that inheritance can go to your family too. You have your land that you already have and you give that to your sons. Now you have a little bit more land, so each one of your sons can have more land now. And he's like, that sounds great. And it's like, well, actually that's not the case, because that land is going to go to Naomi and Ruth's family, not to your family. And then he's like, oh, well then never mind. That kind of puts my inheritance at jeopardy, and I'm not willing to do that. So I will forfeit all of it to you, Boaz. And so when he does this, when he forfeits this to Boaz, a weird custom that they would do at that time he would take his sandal off and hand it to Boaz. And this is kind of like saying, the land that this sandal belongs on, that my foot is supposed to be standing on, is now being given to you. So I should have this land and I should get to walk around on it, but I don't have it. I'm giving it to you. And so this is a symbol. It would be like giving the keys to a truck that you sell, except for, that's useful, and the sandal isn't useful. It's more just symbolic. And so he does this. He hands the sandal to Boaz, and then Boaz looks at the 10 witnesses and he says, okay, you're witnesses of this transaction today. You see that he has turned over his claim to me, and I now can lay claim on this land and on Ruth, right? And they said, yes, we all saw this and we agree. And then this is, they go further than that. Further than just saying, yes, we witnessed your business transaction, now we all go about our own business. They say to him, this is verse 11, it says, we are witnesses. Now, may the Lord make this woman who is coming into your house like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the house of Israel. May you act worthy in Ephrath, and be renowned in Bethlehem. And may your house be like the house of Perez, whom Terah born to Judah, because of the offspring that the Lord will give you and this by this woman. And so these people that he's named are all in the line of Boaz. And Ruth and Rachel and Leah are the two moms that married Jacob, who was the father of the Israelites. God renamed Jacob Israel, and he had 12 sons by these two women and their maidservants. And so the children that they have by their maidservants are, kind of de facto theirs. And so they are the mother of the entire Israelite nation. And so he says, may your son that you have by Ruth carry on the Israelite nation. May he further our tribe, the tribe of Judah, which was born through Perez and Tamar. Now, this is a very interesting story. So if you weren't with us at the beginning, when we went through Genesis and you've never read the chapter, go back and read chapter 38, because this is the story of Judah with his family. But what happens is he goes away from his family and he settles in the land of Canaan, and he marries a Canaanite woman, and they have 3 children. And his oldest son grows up and marries a woman named Tamar, which we also assume is a Canaanite because they're living in the Canaanite land. And then, but it says that this man did wickedness in the sight of the Lord, and so God killed him. That's all we know about him. We don't know what he did wrong, but he did something wrong and God killed him. And so his son, the next son, married her, according to the Levirate law that we talked about a while ago, that you have to marry the childless widow. And he married her, but it was all an illusion. Like he was trying to obey the law, but he really wasn't, because he purposefully did not have any children with her, because he didn't want his children to have his brother's name. He wanted them to have his name. And so he purposefully didn't have any children with her. And that made God angry, and God killed him. And so Judah only had one son left. And he's like, every time I marry these boys off to this girl, they die. And so he's scared to marry Shelah to Tamar. And so he tells Tamar, he says, hey, go back to your family and stay there until Shelah gets a little older. And then when he gets older, I'll call for you and y'all can get married. But this was really all a ploy. He just was putting her off and never really intended to do anything of the sort. But this put Tamar in a very bad situation, because she couldn't remarry unless he released her. And so she's bound to this family. Once she is married to the first son, then she's bound to marry the second son and the third son. And all of her children are supposed to inherit that man's land and his name and all of those things. And so she's bound to this family, and yet he won't give her that son. And so when his wife dies, Judah's wife, she realizes he's never giving me Shelah, and she finds out that he's coming to town. And so she dresses up like a prostitute and stands on the square, and Judah actually sleeps with her. And that was her whole plan. And so after Judah sleeps with her, she becomes pregnant by her father-in-law. And I won't go into all the details as to what happens between them after this, but Judah does end up taking her sons in. She's pregnant with twins, and he adopts those sons as his own. So they should be his grandsons, but they're actually his sons. And so Perez, this one that they speak of, is actually Judah's son. And so Leah is Judah's mom. She is the wife of Jacob, the man that was renamed Israel. And she has her as her third son, Judah. And Judah ends up having these 2 children with Tamar, and Perez is one of those children. And Boaz is through this line. And so when they say, may Ruth be like Rachel and Leah, it's saying we want her to carry on the line of Judah like Leah started and that Judah and Tamar, carried on. And so may that happen with you also. So this was a great blessing. They were basically saying, they really, really respect Naomi. You can tell this. You can tell that everyone holds her in high esteem. And now they are holding Boaz in high esteem, saying, may you be worthy. And how did they put it? They said, worthy in Ephrathah and renowned in Bethlehem. So may your name be great, and may your son's name be great. May he be someone important in Israel that carries on the name of Judah. And so that is their blessing to him after they witness this. And then Boaz and Ruth do get married and they do have a son. And they give all the credit to Naomi, really, more than they do to Ruth. The women go to Naomi and they say, blessed be the Lord who has not left you this day without a redeemer, and may his name be renowned in Israel. He shall be to you a restorer of life and a nourisher in your old age. For your daughter-in-law who loves you, who is more than 7 sons, has given birth to him. And then it says Naomi took the child and laid him on her lap and became his nurse. And nurse doesn't mean nursing him. She didn't nurse him as his mother, but she took care of him. She took him under her wing and she helped raise him. And so they're glorifying Naomi because remember when Naomi came back and they said, oh, yay, Naomi, this wonderful, pleasant woman has come back to us. And she says, don't call me Naomi, which means pleasant or sweet. Call me Mara, which means bitter, because the Lord has dealt bitterly with me, because I left here with a family and now I've come back empty-handed. And the people are saying, look, Naomi, you may have come back empty-handed, but that wasn't the end of your story. God didn't leave you without a redeemer. God gave you Boaz to redeem the land and to redeem your son's name. And now this son will be your redeemer. He is going to restore your life. This boy, he's giving your family back its life because, a family dies without children. And so you have been restored in your old age. God did not leave you empty-handed. As a matter of fact, yeah, you came back with only Ruth, but she was better to you than 7 sons because sons by themselves can't have any children. But she has given you a son, a grandson. And so now your name will be carried on. Your legacy will live. Your land and your legacy have been redeemed through Boaz and now this boy. And so we are hoping and praying and blessing this child, saying that we want him to be the one that is prominent in Israel. And then they named him Obed. And this man is prominent in Israel because the chapter and the book of Ruth end with the genealogy that has led up to Boaz from Jacob and that will lead up to the most important person, and that will lead up to the king of Israel. And so it says Perez has a son named Hezron. Well, Perez, remember, the line is Abraham, which is, the true father of the faith, has Isaac. Isaac has Jacob, who becomes Israel. And Israel has these 12 sons who become the 12 tribes of Israel. And one of those tribes is Judah, and Judah has Perez. And so this is the line so far. And then it tells all of the people that lead up to Boaz. And then it says Boaz has Obed, Obed has Jesse, and Jesse has David. And David is King David. So this boy that they're all blessing and say, may he carry on the name of Judah in Israel and be someone prominent in Israel. Well, he is. He's the grandfather of King David. So the blessings that they have put on this family is amazing, and God fulfills all of it.